A resting heart rate for a normal sized horse, say a large pony, is about 40 beats per minute. It's so much lower than ours. We were able to show that the women in that group were able to bring their heart rates down lower while meditating with horses than without.
There are healers on this planet with the power to soften the suffering of mankind, yet they have remained in the recesses of the world, abused, discarded, and labeled as trash. This is The Touch of a Mustang. I am your host, Shalise Clough, and I'm here to tell the story of wild horses, Mustangs, and the humans who are discovering and sharing their gifts while working to protect their well-being and preserve their spirit, so this divine power won't be lost. Join us on this quest with the Wild Mustang. Melissa Jarzynski has been partnering with horses in physical therapy sessions since 2005. She started seeing common patterns of calm with both her clients and the accompanying caregivers. From this observation, Melissa began to study cardiac coherence and brainwave synchronicity. Using this knowledge and building on her experience, she developed a program to help individuals impacted by trauma and chronic stress. Melissa, it is so great to have you here today. I'm so happy that you agreed to be on the podcast. You talk a lot in your work about how animals can heal us. And that's a big thing that I've noticed with my horses. So I can't wait to see what conversation we have.
Well, I can't wait to hear about the work you're doing with Mustangs, because that is one of the breeds that I truly feel has a special, unique ability to touch people in ways that other more domesticated horses can't.
There's something about them that is really amazing. And it's interesting trying to figure it out because I don't have domestic horses anymore. Well, I do have a little miniature, but he's a whole nother story. So it's interesting talking to people and kind of seeing how that all plays out and what they learn from them. But I love that you have a huge focus on horses and how they help us heal, because it's something I haven't explored in depth, but definitely something I've felt in my life. So I'm still at that point where I'm like, I don't know what exactly it is they do, but there's something really amazing about it.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly where I started with all of this, right? So started in PT school, heard about this amazing thing called hippotherapy. And at that point, hippotherapy, and it still is, the entrainment of the bodies and what that means for movement systems, right? A lot of that research is done on children with cerebral palsy, those delayed walkers, some autism, Down syndrome. The umbrella is pretty huge of who it is that encompasses, but all of that has been very focused on the movement of the horse. And, so I started in 2005 and I was very focused on the movement. I was like, okay, movement, it's all about movement.
And so really a focus on physical well-being was the primary focus?
Yes. But then over time, I slowly started seeing these patterns, right? So as a physical therapist, I see patterns everywhere. People walk, the way they move, the way a horse moves, where it's coming from, what's the basis of that movement. So it's all about patterns. And I just started seeing patterns in not only the children that I was treating, but in their family members and caregivers that were coming to the farm that were not mounted at all. And a similar pattern was happening where people, they would come very frazzled, running late. We're all like those working moms running everywhere.
Trying to keep up with life.
Yes. And they would come and hand me their child frazzled out of their minds. I would go do my sessions. Well, the families are just kind of walking around the farm, maybe sitting outside the horse paddocks. 45 minutes later, I would come back with a child to a completely different parent or caregiver. And I'm like, wait a minute, this what's happening, right? It's not like we're, giving them Xanax every time, what's creating this calm? And I also noticed it in the children themselves. But again, I was kind of chalking that up to the movement. Um, but then I started also noticing it in myself,
Mm,
and what was happening to my body when I was with the horses, and what was kind of happening to my stress levels as I was with them, and how that changed over time, right? Like my baseline, I grew up in a family with an alcoholic father. There was a
mm-hmm,
lot of issues growing out. And so I'm a trauma survivor.
mm-hmm,
Trauma survivors are very sensitive people by characteristically, but my nervous system was running high all the time. The only way I was modulating that was by running marathons. And I just ran marathon after marathon after marathon, trying to
mm-hmm,
regulate my system that was revving up.
mm-hmm.
Except when I was with the horses, I could calm. And I was like, oh, this is totally different. So I started looking into the research, and sure enough, the research shows like when we partner with horses, our heart rates can sync with theirs, just as it can with another human being. They talk about this a lot with moms right now and the co regulation between them and newborns. We're actually co regulating with everyone in our environment all the time. The great thing about horses is their heart rate, a resting heart rate for a normal sized horse, or say a large pony,
Mm-hmm.
is about 40 beats per minute. It's so much lower than ours.
Yeah.
So if in their presence we can surrender, and what does that mean? It means something for it's different for everyone. But it's just kind of like taking off those layers of the mask that we all wear,
Yeah.
and letting that horse see you. And whatever version it is that day is perfect. It's going to change. You're not always going to be able to truly show up in your full authentic self. I mean, that's really hard. Um, but it doesn't matter with the horses because they accept you as you are. So, but one of the cool things that's now like changed with the research in the beginning, the research was shown very much to be anything partnering with horses, but that partnering with horses was more the human taking a horse, putting it on cross ties, and spending time with the horse.
Mm-hmm.
Now the research is showing that it's more about the horse, or it's a stronger connection when the horse has a choice,
Mm.
um, which is so powerful, right?
And it seems like that would, kind of have a back and forth effect when that horse has a choice. Changes the way the horse feels. It also changes the way we're approaching the situation where we're no longer in control because it's held there.
Yes, yes, exactly. And what that brings up for people when a horse walks away, right? Let's say you're walking into a paddock, you see this beautiful horse, your dream horse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all you want to do is touch it because that's what we do. That's what we want. We want
Yeah.
to touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if that horse says, "Oh, you know what? No, thank you," what does that bring up for you? And I run this group called Finding Peace in the Paddock, which I started when I found all of this research. Um, and most people say the horse doesn't like me. And
Mm.
it's so powerful when you think about all of these people who are walking around thinking people don't like them, because
Yeah.
simply the horse walked away. It could be the horse saw grass. It could be the horse, just wanted more personal space. And so it's just a fascinating cycle of what it brings up for the people, right?
Yeah.
And we see that in horsemanship because to some people the horse walking away, well, that's disrespectful and it can never happen, and I'm going to get that horse and they're going to learn a lesson. Okay, so
Yeah.
obviously that touched something for that person. That horse did nothing that was unsafe, right? The horse walked
Mm-hmm.
away. Your interpretation of the horse walking
Right.
away is what's causing that reaction.
Yeah, that
It's what's
reaction really seems to say so much about what we have been taught. A lot of those phrases, the horse is disrespectful, is something taught in horsemanship. And
yes,
also how those teachings have come back and reflected in how we think about ourselves. Like you said, when the horse
yes,
says, or when the person says the horse doesn't like me, that's the first assumption that we make.
yeah. It's not like, oh, there was a lot of flies nearby, or they saw another pile of hay that they hadn't seen before. It's typically a personal attack on
Yeah.
that person.
And really interesting because, if you go and meet a new horse, that horse doesn't know you yet other than what they can feel from you.
Yep.
But aside from that, they have no opinion of you one way or the
No,
other, probably.
no, they really don't. They're in the present moment. They're not conjuring up plans. They have no agendas. They might have an agenda if they see you coming out now with a halter and lead rope, right? Because that has an association to them.
Hmm.
Again, it's the halter and lead rope that has the association and not necessarily the handler, right?
Yeah.
So in those new situations, it is very much like a dance of
Hmm.
trying to, peel back and figure out where the reaction or what's happening with the horse and how the person is playing into that reaction with the horse.
Yeah. And that's really interesting with the halter and lead rope because some horses might come to that and
Yes.
others might flee from it depending on their previous experience with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, with my first Mustang, I was really wanting to get her trained and feeling insufficient. And I went to visit a trainer and she showed me the horse she was working with. And that horse was as far away as possible from her, did not want to come anywhere near her. And that was the thing that kind of led me into training my own horse because I didn't want that. I didn't want to have to force my Mustang
Yeah.
to be with me, my horse to be with me. You want them to enjoy it also, I think. But at
Yes.
the same time, that's not often the approach that we're taught a lot in horsemanship.
It's not, and I have this dream of doing a research study on horsemanship. And I do have a student who's going to be helping me. And I think we are going to put it through the IRB to see if we can get this research done.
Wow,
Um,
yeah.
and I want to look at, my gut is telling me that those who are drawn to horses have some sort of traumatic past that has just caused a lot of shame and isolation. I think that there is something here that calls us to horses. And whether it is that cardiac coherence, whether it is that calm feeling that we finally get in their presence, whatever it is, but then because that diverges to two different mindsets. And typically you're either going to come from the mindset of like, that horse is going to move his feet because I say he's going to move his feet when I want him to. There's no
Hmm.
purpose for it except for you to dominate the horse, right? And what is it that's burning in you that's making you feel like you need to dominate the horse in that moment?
Yeah.
And then there's the other pendulum swing where I'm not going to ask anything of my horse. I don't want anything of my horse, and you can go too far on both sides.
Yeah.
I don't think one is necessarily, as long as you're not causing physical harm to the horse, I don't see it either being horrible. But making a horse that can completely be wild and free, well, that's in this world, it's a horse that doesn't have a home. Because if they can't have the vet or the farrier, or they can't have all of those things that they need, that's a horse that won't have a home. And that's what we want to avoid, right? So
Yeah.
my boy in the backyard, who everyone thought was a Mustang, but he's a registered quarter horse.
Oh.
Um, when he retired from working with me professionally, he and I he always wanted to be a free horse. Doesn't like to be touched. He did his job extremely well. And so he's out in my backyard. He knows the rules, and it's very definite. He can be free. I don't have to brush him. I don't have to be all over him. We can spend time together without me touching him. But when that vet and farrier or dentist come, he needs to be a polite gentleman. Um, and he is this isn't something that I have to continually work on with him. This is, he gets it. He knows this is what I have to do, and the rest of the time he can do whatever he wants. So I do think
Yeah.
there are parameters on both sides, and again, I don't think there's one way that's perfect. I think it's going to be for every horse a little bit different, right? Maybe some horses might need more reminders. I think it's just different for each horse. Like, how do you, with your Mustangs, when you said you want them to kind of choose and partner with you, like, how do you ensure that that happens?
I think a big part of it is how you present yourself and what your interactions are. Horses are really incredible because they are so big and powerful, and for some reason they'll yield pretty easily to us a
Mm-hmm.
lot of time, unless and if they're not those kind of horses, oftentimes those are the ones that end up in really bad situations.
Yes.
But there's so many horses that will yield so easily to what we as humans want them to do. And of course, we've created lots of devices to make that
Yes.
easier for us. But for me, and I don't know what it was because it was a little different than how I was taught. It was very traditional, just like you need to be the boss and in charge and things like that. And so with my first Mustang, she wasn't okay with that. So it was kind of I had to reflect on like, well, what do I want here? Because
Yeah.
initially I really just wanted to have horses. I wanted my kids to be able to ride because as a child that had done so much for me. And that morphed to some degree into just learning to enjoy them and also to learn from them.
Yes.
And in learning from them, there was so much they had to teach me about how to live better. And if there's one thing that's maybe difficult in the horse world, it seems like there are a lot of unbending rules both ways. Some people
Yep.
will either say you don't ever do this, or you always have to do this.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's a lot of judgment out there. And what we don't account for is just the beautiful learning process that it can be. What you would have done 5-10 years ago is probably going to be different in the future if you're taking that time to learn.
Yeah. I love that so much. It's because it's so true. And I think anyone who has been partnering with horses for a while, and truly, when I say partnering with them, I mean truly partnering with them, which is exactly what you just described, because you didn't come in with just your agenda of like, this is how this is going to work, horse, and we're going to make it happen, right?
I mean, I wanted to at first.
But then you learned that that wasn't working. Like you didn't
Yeah.
keep pressing that gas pedal to make that horse succumb or make that horse do what you did. You took a step back and self-reflected on, okay, how can I do it differently? And that I think is like any horse person in the world, if you have been doing the same thing the same way for years and years, because that's how it's always been done, there are so many missed opportunities there. And those missed opportunities a lot of times come only with that self-reflection. And not a lot of people like to do that because they don't want to change, right? They like
Yeah.
this tried and true.
Yeah, it is hard. And for me personally, it came back first as like, you're incapable of this. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Especially because in the Mustang world, people have really great stories with their horses about how quickly they've done it. And so that's kind of what I was hoping. And when it didn't happen, it came back as a reflection on,
On
I'm
you.
not good enough. Maybe this isn't my thing. I'm not talented. A lot of the fixed mindset, which really developed for me in growing up.
Yeah, no, and it was just amplified. It was like an amplified version of the horse walking away from you in a field, right?
Mm-hmm.
With what
Yeah.
you had envisioned, what the stories you heard, it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
And then the reality of it, right? Which, the same thing happened with my guy. He was the first horse I ever owned. Back in 2011, I rescued him.
Oh, wow.
I've been working with horses for so long, but it was my first horse that I owned. I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
clue to what I was doing.
Yeah.
Not a clue. And so, like you, we get trainers, right? And then we decide what's working and what's not. And I remember having the conversation with the trainer. She told me, we're going to open the stall door. You're always going to have a crop in your hand, and that horse is going to back up to a corner whenever you come in. And I was appalled. I was like, there is no way I'm doing this. No, I'm not doing this. And she's like, you can't just love the horse. Like there has to be a give and a take. And at that point I was like, okay, you know what? I just rescued this horse. My husband had like, he didn't even know the horse was coming. And I'm like, surprise, we just rescued a horse. Um, and he's like, what's plan B? I was like, there is no plan B. Like this is plan A and it has to work. So my poor husband, but,
That's
so in
awesome.
my head, I was like, okay, Melissa, we got to keep an open mindset. I'm going to try her way
Mm-hmm.
and see if we're getting the results that I want. Now, did we get the results that we wanted? Yes. Did I make my horse very unhappy? Yes. So what I did is I swung that pendulum way too far.
Mm-hmm.
I was not listening to him. I was telling him what I wanted without listening to him.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that I learned that was by finally listening to him, finally saying, like, okay, you know what? You're doing your sessions, you're doing your job, but you're just not happy. So where's the disconnect? And I started sitting in his paddock for hours at a time. This was before I had children. Um, and that one change of me coming without expectation to him and just being there made a huge difference. But it also shifted me. I stopped asking for useless things. I stopped
Yeah.
asking for the feet to move for no reason because I was like, well, that just seems stupid for me to move his feet just because I can. Um, and it changed the entire dynamic between the two of us. Um, and that only happens when you listen. But again, the same thing. I was like, all right, you know what? Everyone was right. This was a really bad idea. I should not have gotten this horse, right? Like, what was I doing? Who did I think I was that could do
Yeah.
this? And then you have the barn world, like you said, is very judgmental. These people were like, why isn't she riding more? Blah, blah, blah. You know, again, I'm a physical therapist. I'm not coming to the barn necessarily in all the really nice riding gear, right? I'm sitting in a paddock in my shorts reading a book while
Yeah.
everyone else is, you know, getting ready for their shows and whatnot. So were there weird comments? 100%. But at the end of the day, I think, actually, I know people saw the change between Smokey and I. And some of those first friends that I had in the horse world are still some of my closest friends now. And they still will talk about it. So I know some people did notice in a good way. And you know what? And the others, well, they thought I was an idiot. And truly, I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I'm the first to tell you everything I learn is by a mistake, right? That's how we
Yeah.
learn. Um,
And I wonder if that was a relief to some of them to see, like, you had a horse, you weren't following the things that they were told you should do, you weren't having an agenda, and
right.
maybe seeing that it was okay
Yeah.
and good.
I hope so. I mean, because it, you know, anytime you go against that societal norm, the friction you feel is it's innate, right? Because that's, especially in the equestrian world, like you said earlier, there's a lot of judgment. But what you
Yeah.
said was so beautiful about how that judgment isn't necessary when we look at it like on a whole, right? Like it's people trying to figure things out. And as
Yeah.
long as I think people are figuring it out, um, you know, we should encourage them, right? Instead of seeing something and automatically jumping at them in a reactive form. Because I think you and I both openly said, like, we didn't know what we were doing, right?
Yeah.
Who really does? Like at any given time, who really knows what we're doing? We're just
Yeah.
trying things, and when it works, great. And when it doesn't, you go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. And I think there's something really incredible to be open-minded enough to realize maybe I don't know what I'm doing versus someone who feels like they know and follow all the rules. And as so many things with horsemanship, yeah, that applies to horses, but also to just living in society, that you think
Mhm.
everything's right because you're going along doing the agenda, but it maybe doesn't feel good internally.
Yes. 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 And questioning it and feeling comfortable with questioning it. I know, like, there are so many things in this equestrian world that we like quote unquote call normal that are far from normal, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
far from normal. And I think I forget her name now, but she does a really great analogy of like what we do to horses. Let's say we did that to dogs. That would be barbaric if we put, the metal bars in their mouth and the spurs and the whole thing and the crops. You do that to a dog and you're going to get the dog taken away.
Mm-hmm.
But you put that into the horse world and it's like, oh yeah, that's common practice.
Yeah.
And kind of shifting, like if you need all of those added things, maybe there's something else that could be changed before we go to the fear and to the pain, right? Because fear and pain,
Yeah.
we know that's the quickest way to get a result. But just because it's quick and effective, does that mean that it's the best? And the
Yeah.
answer, the horses are telling us, between the increases in colic and lameness and all these health issues that are happening to horses that ultimately results in them not having jobs. The horses are telling us like something is not right. And that is something that humans, we have to sit back and listen to.
And it seems like a lot of the choices we make with our horses are often fear-based.
Yes.
I was talking to a friend who has a horse, and she hadn't been riding her for a while. And so we were just talking about strategies we used. And I told her, if my horses, if I can tell they're starting to get anxious, I just get off and walk them. And she
Yeah.
was blown away because there's a rule in the horse world. You don't get off your horse, especially if they're being quote unquote naughty. And she just was shocked. I was like, yeah, I just get off. And it works great for me. And it's not something that is a training method that is usually promoted. But if my horse is riled up, I get off, we walk for a little bit, I can get back on and everything's fine.
Yeah.
But we have this fear base that, if we get off, the horse is going to learn that they got away with it.
Yes.
And that's the story we tell. I've learned, I get off and she realizes, you're aware of what I'm feeling. Like that helps me feel better because you can tell something made me feel unsure and you didn't want to just push me through it. You wanted to work with me through it. And that's something I've learned by breaking the rules. And that was born out of, I had a really bad horse accident and I was not going to do that again. So that was kind of where it was born out of, but it's been a great opportunity for us to build connection. And I love walking my horses now, which is a weird thing. People don't take their horses on walks, but if they've been out of commission, if it's been winter and they haven't been ridden a lot, I'll just take them on walks at first because, for when I have kids, like I can't take a chance on an accident.
Yeah.
I have people I need to take care of, but it has become something that like we can talk now and I can tell how you're feeling a lot more because I'm aware of that, which maybe started with me and then transferred to being mindful of the horse.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And I've had this post like generating in my head that I want to put out onto social media because we're often telling people, like you said, you don't get off. You got to do it scared. You just got to do it scared.
Push through.
But not with horses. And because they are living, breathing biofeedback machines, right? They are smelling our hormones from feet away. They can tell if you're a girl or boy. They can tell your age. They can tell your sugar levels. They can tell pregnancy. They can tell seizures. They can tell all of that just from your scent. So now imagine you're on a horse, right? Your heart starts to beat fast. You're nervous. Your body
You're going
tightens.
into fight or flight. Yeah.
Exactly. You are sending off all of the stress hormones are coming out. So now the horse is feeling your heart rate going up, feeling your muscle tension increase, and smelling that something is off. Now, why do we think that we should stay on in that moment? How is that beneficial for the horse or the rider? You're putting yourself and the horse at risk for something that's probably not even there because half the stuff is in our head. But why take that chance? Right? Like when you think about it, it's just not worth it. And I say that to any therapist that I'm mentoring. Say, listen, if something feels off in your session, you stop and you take the child off. Because there is no reason that you need to even approach that, right? You can take the child off, let the horse walk a little bit. And like you said, get back on if it seems okay. And if you don't, you don't. And that's all okay. But there's no need for that horse to feel any extra stress coming at them when they're already at a heightened state.
Yeah.
It's like, you trying to calm somebody down by yelling at them.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not helpful. But yet we tell everyone, just like you said, don't get off. Don't you dare get off, because that
Yeah.
horse. Um, and you know what? Maybe for some horses, that's true. But I would also like to, I would like to challenge some people to say, well, try it the other way, just like I did. Try it a different way and see how it goes. And
Yeah.
be open to what happens during that time, because what happens during that time is probably going to blow your mind.
Yeah. And a big part of that, I think, is that we see things in absolutes.
Yeah.
You get off, this horse is going to learn that forever. And horses really aren't like that at all. They
No.
certainly can learn from our behavior. They
Mhm.
certainly can learn, to get away with things, but that's not necessarily what's happening, even though
Right.
that's the assumption we always or often jump to.
Yes. And but people do the same thing, right? Like, why are we, it's an innate behavior that all, mammals, I think, have. Um, so, okay, they might get away with something every once in a while. Is it the worst thing in the world? No. No, it's really not. Are we held accountable for every time we kind of get away with something?
Mm-hmm.
No. There's a grace in there as well, that I think is really beautiful. When we can start giving that grace to others via let it start with the horses. It's always easier to start with the horses, but by giving that grace to your horse, say, okay, you know what? I see what you did there. Good job. There's not a big repercussion. There was not anything. You start giving more grace to yourself too.
Yeah.
You start saying, like, you know what? That wasn't such a big deal. Why did I lose my head over, the horse taking a step into the tack room or whatever it was?
Which in turn reflects in our relationships, that we're able to see others in better light with the best of intentions, give
Yeah.
them the benefit of the doubt. But if we're not doing that for ourselves, then it's hard to do that for others.
It really is. That's like such a life lesson, that can start with horses, right? And again, I go back to why horses. Why are these people drawn to horses? Well, if you ever came from an environment, if you were ever in a relationship where, you had to question people's motives, or, you were just trying to understand things, horses are a very safe spot, because like you said, they'll yield to pretty much anything we ask.
Mm-hmm.
They're a pretty safe spot to land and start testing those theories, right? Like, and usually we come in then with the dominance, because we're like never going to be taken advantage of again. We're never going to have these things happen. And that's the fear. That's the fear that's just living in
Yeah.
us, that we're holding on to. But again, if you listen to your Mustang, like I listened to my boy,
Mm-hmm.
if you take that step back, and feel what's happening in your body, that like felt perception is so important, because your mind will trick you into being like, yeah, you're doing the right thing. It's what everyone else is doing. But if you can see how that feels in you and what's the driving force, right? And truly sit with that and be like, oh God, for me, it's like a fire in my chest, like an anger, fear. And I can evoke it quite easily. Do I want to or need to? No. When you have to, but that's not what I want to go in with. Right. And so by learning that, and again, the horses will always tell you what you're coming in with.
Melissa has seen the power of horses to help us heal and grow. As a result, she, as a physical therapist, has partnered with a speech and occupational therapist to provide equine facilitated services to aid children with developmental challenges in a setting which will help them build independence, confidence, resilience, and friendship. Check them out at Stable Friendships Foundation on Instagram or at stablefriendshipsfoundation.org. And one thing that I found, which came from me personally and kind of reflected back in my personal life, is there is a very careful balance. It can go the other way. You can have a horse that you're too soft on and begins taking advantage of you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to me because it seems like that most likely is also something that's happening in personal life where we are maybe not recognizing the places we need to set up boundaries for ourselves. Not that other people are doing stuff, but where we're allowing things to happen that
Yep.
then put us in an unhealthy place or an explosive place or a place where we feel used. And
Yep.
so I think the horses are great for that too, because they will kind of push that also. And so it really does have to be a lot of awareness that you have to personally have to have a really healthy interaction.
So it's so true. You can let that pendulum swing too far to the point where the horse is taking advantage of you. And a lot of times that comes from us, either, with our self-doubt or our self-confidence in what we're doing, or our inability to have that boundary, whether it's because we don't want the horse or person to feel uncomfortable, right? We don't want them to feel
Mm-hmm.
like our love is blocked, or wherever that comes from. It's usually we don't want uh, that other person or horse to be uncomfortable with our behavior. So we just are like, oh, it's okay. It's okay. Um, but if we were listening to what's happening inside of us at that moment and catch it, it would really help with that resentment down the line. And I had, when the boys first arrived here, I had so much gratitude to Smokey for everything. And I always will, right? He carried my entire business on his back. And how
Mm-hmm.
do you repay that? So
Mm-hmm.
how did Melissa repay it? I brought him home and there was no sort of discipline. There was no sort of rules. It was a free for all. You just go do your thing. I'm going to leave you alone. Um, and so what happened was he was breaking out every night at like 3 o'clock in the morning,
Oh no.
and the donkey would bray and wake up all the neighbors. And he was my alarm telling me Smokey got out again. And I was telling a friend of mine, I'm like, yeah, he got out again. And I just said it like, whatever. And she's like, well, do you know what I hear? And I was like, what? She's like, he needs boundaries. She's like, what is a fence? It's a boundary. He's just testing all boundaries because you've taken all, like you've just gave him free reign of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was like, oh shit, she's right, right? Like truly, I overloved him. I did not want him to
Mm-hmm.
be uncomfortable at all.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not truly realistic for a horse, for a domesticated horse, to never be uncomfortable. And nor is it really for a wild horse, if you think about it. They're going to be uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
because life happens. There might be a mountain lion or whatever. Um, Discomfort is something we have to be okay with. And so I was like, okay, Smokey, here we go. We had to start working on a couple things, very basic. And then I said, you know what, let's change it, because he had been working with me forever. And he will respond to my breath work. Like he's amazing. And I was like, okay, let's give you somebody else. So I started training my kids how to just do simple leading with him, right? Leading
Mm-hmm.
mindfully. Um, and that was it. And, knock on wood, he hasn't broken out since, the first couple months he's lived here. But that's what it took. It didn't take, rigorous training. It just took a little bit of like, okay, so every couple of days you have to remember we're going to put a halter on and we're going to do something. And that doesn't mean he can't graze afterward, but it's just a reminder of like, okay, this is how we do it.
Yeah, there's definitely that balance where it's not pain and fear per se, but also not comfort all the time.
Yes.
Because whether it's for horses or for us, if you are comfortable all the time, it's not a very good thing for people. It causes a lot of problems for people if you never do anything that's uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. We have to face that discomfort and embrace it even because that's how we are able to progress and learn. Um, I remember with my Mustang, it was when she was fairly new. We were out on the trail and this big purple plant had like blown up on the trail that wasn't there before. And for some reason, she was just scared to death of that. And a lot of times in the past, I might have just quickly tried to get past it.
Right.
But this time, and this was kind of a lesson that I've carried with me, we turned and we kind of faced it and we checked it out. And so it was uncomfortable. We would have got past it a lot faster if we just like pushed that down. But after a time, something that was uncomfortable was no longer uncomfortable. It was something that helped us build and grow.
Oh, I love, yeah, it's just like in EGALA, which is a model that mental health professionals use, and it's all experiential with horses. And they always talk about the power of the pause. And that's exactly what you did, right? The initial reaction was, okay, we're going to rush through this, right? Mm-hmm. And then you were like, wait, but I'm going to pause first. And in horses, and I understand they can be reactive, but I also think that when we give them a chance to not be reactive, they're going to choose to not be reactive. They much rather conserve their energy for a true problem, right? They don't want to be reactive for everything. But if we're reactive first, we don't even give them a chance. We're making it reactive. But yeah, that power of the pause is something that's just, it sticks with me all the time in everything in life, right? Just taking that extra breath to breathe through it. And like you said, slowly that discomfort, that uncomfortable situation, it really is not that uncomfortable anymore. And you're like, oh, okay. Yeah, we're good. Continue on. Call's fine. So how many Mustangs do you have?
I have 3.
Wow. And do they all live together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all together. Mm-hmm.
Were they together previously and then they came together?
No, they just all came from different spots and came into life at different times.
Right. That's amazing. And did you have horses previously, or were the Mustangs your first horses?
So I grew up with horses.
Okay.
Riding them, and then kind of went to college and everything, and didn't have horses for a long time. Started a family, and then we got an old kid's horse, and he was old and kind of, he put up with most things, but didn't necessarily, he was like one that once you caught, he was fine, but he did not like being caught. And then he ended up kind of bucking one of the kids off, and I was pregnant again. So I got rid of the kid's horse, had a baby, and got a Mustang instead. So not very logical, but yeah. How did you come to have horses in your life?
So when I was little, like I said, my family, we didn't have a lot of money. Horses was definitely not something that was going to be a common occurrence in my life, except we had a small cottage on an Indian reservation in Lake Erie. It's the Seneca Hawk Indians. And there was horseback riding and horses. And so I would just beg my parents to take me as much as I could to go and see the horses and spend time with the horses. Everyone there was so kind. It was a very different way of horsemanship at that barn. And that was how it was, very peaceful, very quiet, very, the vibe was just like, you just wanted to be there all the time. And I did. I couldn't get enough of it. But that was only during the summers. And then during the school year, I was back at school. And then slowly as I got older, they didn't have the horses on the property anymore, and things kind of changed. And I just kind of, it was just another life phase. I just thought it phased out until PT school. When I heard about hippotherapy, I was like, oh, that seems remarkable. And it just kind of clicked, right? Being outside with the kids and the horses, just seemed to make a recipe for something amazing. And so I applied for an internship at a really amazing facility in Monroe, New Jersey. It's called Special Strides. And they are nailing it there. They get it. They have, a couple hundred acres of land. There's trails for these horses. Any horse that comes on the property, also retires there. They put that horse centric focus on that. I was like, yes, that's what it felt like when I was little, right? It felt very wonderful and
Yeah.
contained. Um, it wasn't until I got married and moved that I even knew there was another side of the horse world, that I even
Mm,
realized this um, domination and this fear-based training and these pieces of equipment and the show world. I knew the show world existed, but I didn't really know it existed. Do you know what I mean? Like I knew it was out
hmm
there, but I didn't understand what was really transpiring at these events. Um, and so when I got Smokey, so I could continue my practice, and I boarded him at a barn, it was fascinating, completely fascinating. They were calling the craps weapons, and I'm like, what is happening? Like, it was such a stark contrast to
Yeah.
everything I had in my life up until that point. And that's when, thank goodness I had some very kind people who kind of took me under their wing and was like, okay, so this is what this means. This is how this goes.
hmm
Um, but because I have this foundational feeling of the horsemanship that I experienced, and because it is such a stark contrast to what you feel at a lot of other places, that's what really was the catalyst for like, what is this like dichotomy between, these very peaceful, like very happy horses that are happy to work, that don't need all of these equipments, right? When I was young, it was just, on the back of a horse with maybe a neck rope, right? Like it wasn't, and the horse was fine. Like
Yeah.
there was no
Wow.
helmets. I was a little kid. Um, to all of
What
a
an
sudden,
incredible foundation to start with.
yeah, yeah, no, that's and so when I bought Smokey, of course, I didn't buy a saddle because I was like, well, I don't need a saddle. I bought a
That's
bareback
awesome.
pad because like that's what I needed for like hygienic purposes for the children that I treat. But who
hmm
needs a saddle? So I'm off on the trails in a bareback pad. Everyone thought I had lost my mind. And they're like, that is the most unsafe thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, I don't agree with you. And I'll tell you why, because I feel everything this horse, like if there is a muscle twitch, I feel it.
hmm
So I am going to react much quicker to him than anything else. And it's also giving
Yeah.
him a direct connection with me. Like it is a direct connection. So I I had no problems. The only time that I ever got thrown from my boy in the back was when I was pregnant. I didn't know I was pregnant yet.
Oh, wow.
And it turns out he hated me when I was pregnant. He
Oh.
did not like something about the smell. It was the only time he ever ran away from me in a paddock. Um, there was something about the pregnancy hormones that he did not like. And the poor guy, for almost an entire year, he was surrounded by pregnant people because I was pregnant. My sidewalker was pregnant. Like this poor horse was just like surrounded. Um, and he tolerated it. Um, but yeah, the bear that I still don't like riding in a saddle. And I have thought about taking lessons, like to truly learn, all of the beautiful stuff. Um, but I just really kind of like my bareback pad and doing my own thing. So I haven't done that.
That's funny. I'm the same. I always prefer bareback and that close connection. The saddle I do have is more English style and it's very
Okay.
soft. It's because I needed stirrups to be able to
Yeah.
get off and on is the only reason I got it. That's funny. That's so interesting.
Yeah. But it's, in this world where I am, this is a very showy area, very English area.
Mm,
Um, uh, so yeah, they're like, what?
hmm
Where I'm sure there's other parts of the world who would not look at it so differently. But yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah. That's really neat that you were able to just experience all that as a kid. So you had that strong foundation there to already know that there was a way that you felt good about to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm very grateful for that, and I'm so grateful my parents, took me as often as they could, right?
Yeah.
So that I was able uh, to have that foundational start, to have a perceptive that is just completely different now when I'm at barns and I'm meeting people of similar age to me, and we ask about, well, how did you start? And they're like, oh, I was on, the A circuit, or I was, all this
Mm-hmm.
other stuff. And I'm like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that must have been, it's just such a stark contrast.
Yeah.
Than to what I know. And so then I went to a horse show to support a friend, and the one of the horses, the rider fell off, and the horse just took off and then jumped out of like the showing arena,
Oh,
and
uh-huh.
then just like took off like into like the vendors and everything. And I was like, oh my goodness, and she's like, yeah, that happens. And I was like, do you think the horse is happy that he's doing that? Like, it was just mind blowing that this was thought of as like, oh yeah, it's a common occurrence.
Yeah.
That poor horse is scared to death right now. Running around could probably get hurt or hurt someone, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody thought of that as like a red flag moment of like, you know what, let's
Yeah.
stop and think about what's happening, and let's think about what happened to that horse. Is this horse really appropriate for this? It was fascinating to me.
Yeah. Nobody seemed to take that as a learning opportunity, which just kind of going back to the judgment, I think probably it fell down in judgment. But something I've learned is, yeah, when things don't go right, that's your chance to learn what's going on. So
Yes.
that's very
Yes.
interesting.
No one
And
likes
so,
to make a mistake, but we do.
yeah, we do all make mistakes. People,
Yeah.
it's part of life, even though I think it's being talked about more that mistakes are okay. That's kind of how you learn. But I feel like growing up, mistakes were
Oof.
bad,
Yeah.
not a learning opportunity.
No, it was a reason to be like have the fear of God into you, right?
Yeah.
It was not like, oh, it's okay, you'll get it next time. It was like, hammered into you, that there will
Yeah.
never be a next time for you to make that same mistake, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of understand where our mentality with horses like is reflective
Yeah.
of that. If we don't take that step back and think, okay, is there a better way? What am I actually feeling right now? Um,
Yeah.
is it needed? How can I change it?
Yeah. Again, very fear-based, which once you can recognize that and start to work on that, and something horses can help us do if we let them,
Yeah.
becomes such an incredible dynamic to change in your life.
And it can cross over, like you said, all relationships, right? I know for me, I found it easiest with horses. They're not intimidating. They don't lie. They're not judging me. They have the patience and forgiveness of like everyone. With that in mind, right? Like it might give you the courage to try it with a safe person, right? To try some of that, knowing that feeling on the inside, and seeing how it goes, right? And sometimes it's going to go well with a person and sometimes it's not. Getting that confidence level up to try is so hard with so many people because they just feel like and people have disappointed them and shut them down. And I totally get it. I think that's something we can all resonate with. Like whether you're a trauma survivor, whether you have, ADHD or you have anxiety, you have depression, whatever it is, there is a combining factor of feeling not good enough, feeling that inadequacies, quote unquote, right? And to be able to partner with an animal that's not judging you gives you such a safe space. However, it can also be very scary because the first thing that's going to come to the top of your head is all of that fear, all of that inadequacies. We're not good enough. We're not doing it right. They don't like me. And wrestling with that a little bit in our heads
Yeah.
and saying, is this the truth? Did that horse really walk away from me because they don't like me? Is that true? Do I know that 100%?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is always no. Always no, because we don't know. You cannot say 100% certainty why that horse walked away. Could it have been your energy or something? Great, 100%. But let's try again. And maybe we try differently and see how that feels and see how that works. It's just about taking that step back. And I don't blame people for not taking the step back. I mean, I'm sure you can attest it is not always pretty to have that reflected back at you.
Yeah, it's hard to realize that you are able to change something and that the power is yours, because it's easy to deflect blame.
Yes.
And to put it even on things that we make unchangeable. The
Yeah.
horse just doesn't like me. Whereas you can go from a different angle and maybe say the horse doesn't like my energy right now, which is
Yes.
something that you can change.
Right. Right. And just that simple addition of the horse doesn't like me to the horse doesn't like my energy, right? Just changing, just putting that on automatically takes that closed door of like the horse doesn't like me, I'm out of here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and it opens the door of like, okay, but I can, I have a say in this, right? I am part of this partnership. So how can I change that, or what can I do to make that a little bit better? And it does. It'll open up all of the patterns that you've done your whole life, and it'll lay it out in front of you. And you're like, okay, this, I've been running away from that discomfort for quite some time. But maybe I'm making it worse by doing that, right? And maybe I just need to turn around, face it, and then realize it's not so bad and not blame the horse for all of my life problems. I remember this one woman, I was at this indoor, we were renting space at an indoor, and she had a young mare, and she was an older woman, probably, late 70s. I thought it was pretty advantageous for her to like have such a young horse. And of course, this horse was just giving her the run, and she couldn't get on, and she is just cursing up and down at this horse. I just remember being there like, oh my word, woman. Like, I wouldn't want to be that horse and let you get on right now either. Like,
Yeah.
You're kind of like losing your shit on the mounting block. Like, I don't want to stand next to that either.
Right.
And like that plays in my head all the time when a horse is responding to me in a way that I am not anticipating. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Am I that person right now on the inside? Because we don't have to be it on the outside. If we're harboring that on the inside, that's what the horses are picking up. They don't care about our age or anything else like that. They care about that intention that you're coming to them with. And if I'm coming with that intention of a crazy person, rightly so, they should walk away. That's self-preservation. Yeah. I should not be upset for that. And I'm not going to hold them, I'm not going to blame them. So again, it's a lot of self-reflection, which, it is, but it's the only way to grow.
Yeah. And so you started with horses healing people physically, and that's pretty well known, pretty well accepted that they're a fantastic use there. How did that, now you're moving into helping people with trauma and stress, how did that play out? How did that change come about?
It happened after 2020, and I saw the state people were coming back to the farm, and I was like, okay, this is, and I kind of had this idea in my head ever since I had seen the research in 2009 from Linda Keenling. She was the first one who did the research on the heart rate syncing up that I had found at that time. And I said, all right, you know what? We need to step forward in this. And because what was happening is also when we are under that amount of pressure. So imagine yourself, I want you to feel your body for a second, right? Feel your body walking into a room full of people that you love and you're excited to see. All right. And now feel how that is in your body. And now feel in your body what it's like to go into a room where you know you're going to be reprimanded or ridiculed or criticized. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have felt tightness along your back somewhere, maybe in your neck. You might have felt it in your stomach or even in your pelvis. Your body tightens. And what happens is over time, you start creating entirely different movement patterns because you're always afraid of what's going to come next. So now you fall into this chronic pain cycle, chronic inflammation cycle. And it's all because we haven't learned to bring our body systems down. We haven't learned how to calm it. We're just feeding the fire that's inside of us, which is leading to that inflammation, is leading to all of these problems. I mean, autoimmune problems go hand in hand with trauma survivors. And that's because our systems are always revving, always going. They don't calm. So I said, all right, I'm not a mental health specialist. I'm not a mental health professional by trade, but I see these movement patterns and I see ways out of it. And if we do that well with the horses, what can we accomplish? And so then I developed this stretching program, taking us outside of normal movement patterns and then going to the horses. The first couple sessions, we don't have horse interaction. We strictly are letting the horses pick up our energy because everyone in that group is coming with a very different energy. And as a collective group, the herd is going to then react to that collective group. And I like to be able to see how the herd is reacting before we go out. But I also want them to experience it and know that it's safe, right? Know that nothing there is going to happen that is going to be, uncomfortable for them and they have a choice to walk away. So I put together this program and it's called Finding Peace in the Paddock. And so far we've run case study and we were able to show that the women in that group were able to bring their heart rates down lower while meditating with horses than without. So we had them tracking heart rates, meditating near horses, and then they also did it at home. And comparing the two, and of course, with the horses, they were able to bring their heart rates down much quicker into lower parts than they could achieve on their own. And then we also ran just a stress comparison of before and afters, and that had a significant change. All of the women had significant changes in their stress rating scales. That was really cool. So we're taking it the next step and doing some more research on it. But it's really just learning for people to feel their bodies again, making friends with their bodies. We are so in our heads all the time, thinking about what's next, what do we have to do, who are we disappointing? Like the thoughts are just nonstop to the point where we don't feel our bodies. And we don't have to be doing like crazy yoga poses. No one's standing on their heads. These are just simple stretches that take us out of the patterns that I've seen these groups kind of dictating in their lives and creating problems. And, because of my trauma as a child, I actually have been collecting this data for a really long time and I didn't even know it. And that's something I think a lot of people will understand, right? When you were used to walking on eggshells, if I saw someone's shoulders were raised, I knew what that meant and I knew how I needed to behave. And I think a lot of us are picking up on those cues all the time, subconsciously. So by putting that into my forced awareness, I was like, okay, let me take back all the data that I really have. And from there, we developed this stretching program combined with the horses. And I do partner with mental health specialists, which I think whoever you are in the world as a healthcare provider or not, whenever you bring two professionals together for one person, you're going to get a better outcome. No one, it can't happen in a vacuum, right? So by partnering with their traditional talk therapists, they get booklets with reflective questions and the therapist sees the activities that we have, and then they can take it to their mental health therapist and have that discussion of like, what came up in the paddock, what happened. And the therapist that I have been partnering with the most, and I have seen some really great results doing that and kind of tag teaming this, and really making a difference on this chronic pain that drives a lot of addiction, unfortunately, and drives a lot of just behaviors that people don't want, and learning how to overcome that chronic pain in a safe environment and to sit with that pain sometimes, and truly get to the root of it. And that is something that I don't think our medical community is doing enough. We're just prescribing pills. We're saying, oh, that hurts. It must be something physical. But there is a growing mound of evidence saying that the physical stuff, it can be, started by an emotional or mental component. And what you felt when we just did that little talk about walking into a room with someone you love versus someone that's going to criticize you is exactly proof of that. You were not walking anywhere. You and I have been talking the whole time, but you had a physiological response just to us talking about it. And addressing that pain, that maybe it isn't something that we need to rush away from. Maybe it's something we need to sit with for a minute, pause, right? And say, okay, when else have I felt that before? When did it start? And when did it truly start? And spend time with it instead of running away from it or covering it up. And that Peace in the Paddock has two parts, right? I want to help people, but also I want to help horses. And by proving that horses have a purpose besides being ridden is very important to finding peace in the paddock. These horses, they don't have to be ridden. And these people are getting results. Just like I saw with the parents back in 2005, of parents just being on property and having decreased stress levels that were visual to me after returning their child. It's not always about the riding. I'm sure riding has great things, but it's not everything.
Yeah. It's fascinating to me that you arrived there going through the physical movement first and seeing how that was correlated with the mental, emotional state of mind. And it's interesting because we do rely a lot on pharmaceuticals. That is our first answer. If you go to the doctor, that's likely where you're going to be sent. And I don't even think this is new information. I think it's very well known. You know, it goes back to the nature nurture debate. Like, is this a biological thing? Is this an environmental thing? Which we've never been able to figure out. And I think the reason for that is because it's all intertwined. The things that you do in your mind affect your physiology, which is what it seems like you saw. You would see how that physical aspect would change because that was what you were trained in. But there's so much interplay in between there. So it's really incredible to just think about how by changing your thoughts, your mind, your behavior, you can change your physical state. And on the same level, if you can change your physical state, that can change your mind, whether that's the environment that you're in, going places where you can feel peace and relief from the stress or trauma, whatever things are very emotionally difficult. It's incredible how that all unfolds. As you were talking, I was thinking back to my experience because I had my baby, I got my Mustang, and then probably like 3 months later, I had terrible back pain. And it was something that was an issue for me. I had back surgery when I was 20, but this was way worse. And, you know, I'd go to the chiropractor and it was to the point where I couldn't pick up my baby. I was having to have my oldest daughter, like, get him out of the crib at night because my back hurt so bad. I'd have these back spasms. And it's so interesting because I'd go to the chiropractor. They kind of got it to a point where I could function. I could move around. But I was honestly thinking in my mind, like, I might be paralyzed for I don't know how I'm going to function with this level of pain. And I remember when it all changed, and it's just interesting to think, I wonder if there were more factors at work than I recognized then. I was out at the horse corral and I had panels up and they would kind of get off a little bit. And so I was kind of, you know, pulling and pushing against each other, trying to get them centered more. And there was just this huge crack up my back where it's like my back just got realigned all of a sudden. But it's interesting that that kind of corresponds with some of my experience with horses. And just makes me wonder how that might have factored into the healing process, because it's so much like I haven't had issues with it since the horse corral fixed it.
Yeah, there is low back pain is one of like the tall tale signs of where people hold that emotional pain and tension. Dr. Sarno, who I believe he passed away, but he has an amazing book specifically on low back pain, because that is something that as a physical therapist, we see all the time. People have low back pain all the time. And a high incidence of them do not improve with just exercise at all and strengthening, which if it was strictly a biomechanical issue, it would get better, but it doesn't, right? And then they have surgeries and that doesn't work. And these are the people that I see in the paddock then, who have just been like, I have tried everything. Nothing is working for this back pain. and I am doing nothing to their backs. And the back pain can get better. So
Mm,
that means the back pain wasn't that wasn't the root. The root was an
yeah.
emotional component that you were holding on to subconsciously. No
Yeah.
one wants to hold it. This is not baggage we're happy
Yeah.
about. And to the point too, I don't want to throw medical professionals under the bus either, in the sense that the pharmaceuticals are thrown at us. A lot of the population wants that. They want that quick
Mm-hmm.
fix, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, so that is being fueled by people saying, "Oh, just give me a pill, do the surgery, get
Mm-hmm.
rid of the pain,
Mm-hmm.
so that I don't have to deal with it anymore." And 100% for some people that works, if it's truly a biomechanical problem, right? But what we've learned over time, and what Dr. Sarno has done extensive research on, is that, and with back pain especially, some people with bulging discs have zero pain. They have none.
Mm-hmm.
So
Hmm.
he did a whole study on people's backs, and the severity of the bulging disc, and the amount of pain. Some people with the very worst bulging disc had zero pain at all. They didn't even know it was there until they signed up for this study.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Wow.
he's like, it's not always strictly biomechanical, right? We can't always look at those x-rays or CAT scans or MRIs and expect them to tell us the entire story. Especially if you have someone that's gone through PT or chiropractic care or massages or whatever it is, and they aren't getting better. There is something else at play there, that, unfortunately, if the pain continues, it cycles into the addiction, and it cycles into all these really
Mm-hmm.
bad patterns. And it's a quality of life issue for these people. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something that they want, right? It's
Mm-mm.
definitely not something I would blame them for. They're trying to deal with pain, and we've all dealt with pain. It's not fun. Um, but they also maybe aren't being given a chance to try other modalities, right? To try. And talk therapy is wonderful, but it's not for everyone either. And especially when you're dealing with a physical condition, you have to be able to decipher what's a normal pattern, what's not a normal pattern, what's coming into play. And so, yeah, it takes more than one head to kind of crack that nugget.
Yeah. And it's interesting even with talk therapy because the research I have seen is it's questionable how
Mm-hmm.
effective it is, if it is even helping us or if it's just
Making it worse.
bringing all those feelings and experiences back when they don't need to be. In your experience and with back, so I know for me, just from my experience with back pain, part of that because, the more tense it is back there, the more it locks up and the more painful it gets. And certainly that could stem from a mental, emotional place.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've seen? Is there a connection
Oh,
there?
oh, yeah. There's a huge connection. And actually, I was just looking up research for a writer, because she's going to be actually writing an article on muscle pain and anxiety, and can a tight muscle make your anxiety worse? And the answer is 100%. But it becomes a little bit like chicken and egg. What comes first, your
Mm-hmm.
anxiety or the tight muscles? Are the tight muscles a result from that chronic holding that you've been doing? Because those tight muscles are sending, signals to your body that I better go. There's a reason. I better be ready. I better brace.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we are telling our body in that moment. And there's been some pretty cool research done where they took a group of people in Sweden, and they took them off their anxiety and depressive medications.
Mm-hmm.
And they went for Swedish massages. I think it was like once a week for 3 months. Those people, I think it was a high percentage of like 76% people, and I can actually get you the article, but a high percentage of those clients stayed off their medications for over a year after that.
Wow.
So, right? So is it a biochemical imbalance, or is it an imbalance that we're creating within our own bodies?
Mm-hmm.
There is something there. And I think research will just continue to get more and more good at deciphering what it is. But like you said, this isn't new material. Dr. Sarno, I believe he passed away. He started this research many, many years ago. And now we have, Dr. Peter Levine and Dr. Matei, who are always talking about the body keeps the score. It's all there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just putting those pieces together. And for people to not, I don't ever want anyone to feel like, oh, well, that's just another thing I messed up. I wasn't taking care of my body. I've been in talk therapy for all
Yeah.
this time. What a
Mm-mm.
waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not it. It's the same thing with horses, right? Like, we're learning. We're all
Yeah.
doing the best we can. Yes, there might be other ways. And just because that wasn't in your orbit at the time, it's not anything against you. And maybe you weren't ready for it then, right? There's also that other part of like, sometimes things do come in your path only when you're ready.
Yeah.
Um, so
It's
it's interesting.
Yeah, a big piece of it also seems to me is that pharmaceuticals, medical intervention, that is the most accessible.
Yeah.
That's also where we have been told to turn. And so it's a big part, not necessarily people making a poor choice per se, as much as that's the information that we're getting, that that's where healing takes place is, in the hospital, in the doctor's office. But for me, it's so exciting to see that people are finding these other ways that are beneficial, and then how incredible to find the scientific backing to show like this is making a significant difference. Because surprisingly, a lot of the very acceptable and go-to methods don't necessarily have that strong of backing that this is actually an effective method. So it's incredible the work you're doing. So exciting to see how that interplays and the progress that you're able to see and people are able to make by going off the well-beaten path and trying other things.
Yeah. And I have to say, again, the people that are coming are not, these are people who have been dealing with this for a long time. So whether it's desperation or whatever it is that has them try it, they get there, right? But it's usually not the people who are like, yeah, I've been a little stressed out, my back kind of hurts. They're usually not the ones that are coming
Yeah.
to the groups. And it's the medical system is just a very interesting system right now, on who's making the money, who the profit is going, and that is something that is very dear to my heart. Medical professionals should not be working for non-medical professionals ever, because that changes their ability to make the correct decisions for the clients. If you are a therapist or a doctor, and the person telling you how to do your job is not a medical professional, they're just looking at the bottom line of how to make the most money.
Mm-hmm.
That's a sad day in medicine, right? And
Yeah.
that's definitely, unfortunately, the direction that we've been headed in, which is why this, setting up this nonprofit is something that's really important to me, because otherwise it's not accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
And I believe that health and wellness, it should be accessible to whoever needs it, regardless of their financial ability to pay for it. And I also don't think that healthcare providers need to be the ones always taking a slack on getting paid. I think they need to get paid, right? They have
Yeah.
student loans. They went to school for this.
Yeah.
And so, I think that there will be a lot of changes in healthcare that are just going to continue to happen. And we can only hope for the best, right? That it'll get better.
Yeah, it's such a place of hope, I think, that, if you are someone who's kind of reached the end of traditional stuff, there's other things out there and other people who are really exploring how we can find greater healing. And I think the more we can embrace the fact that it's not just a physical process, there's nothing about us that's just solely physical,
Yeah.
and we need to bring in the whole person and all those aspects. I think it's only going to improve. So it's incredible that you're starting that program. A few questions for you
Sure.
before we head out. My first one is, when are you going to get a Mustang?
Oh my
Is
goodness.
it
I
something you
feel
think
it.
you'll do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel him. I know he's coming. Um, when and how, I don't know. But I do know he is coming. So that'll be an interesting addition. And when he comes, I'll assume when he crosses my path, it's my sign that it's time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm very excited for that. I have a friend who's working with a Mustang right now, and I have another friend who rescued one a couple of years ago. So I've gotten to kind of see a little bit of that world, and I'm very excited. And I know the right one will come when I'm ready. I don't think, obviously I'm not ready yet. So when
I
we're
think
ready.
I think that's a good approach, because when I got mine, as I told you, I had no clue, but there was something about her. And then how can people find you, support your work, learn from you? What are the best ways to connect with you and support you?
Melissa Jean PT is pretty much like my handle on everything, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or my website. And that'll be slowly evolving to include Stable Friendships Foundation, which is the name of the nonprofit that I'll be starting. That is in the works. And I think we just got the okay to take donations the other day. So that's always exciting.
Yes.
And it's, and I'm always happy to chat and talk. I obviously love to talk about this. And if anyone ever has any questions, I encourage them to reach out. It takes me usually a couple days to get back, but I'm always happy to talk about it.
That's incredible. That is exciting. I can't wait to kind of follow you and see where this all goes and how this all unfolds for you. I'm so impressed with the work you're doing, and the angle you've been able to take on it is just so interesting to me. So please keep sharing, keep talking about it. It's very fascinating. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and to talk about horses and how they help us heal.
Perfect. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us and learning about horses that heal and the humans who help them. We hope you'll continue with us on this journey. We'd love for you to subscribe on your favorite platform and follow The Touch of a Mustang on any of the major social media outlets. Please share with your friends, anyone who loves horses, or anyone who might be struggling and could benefit from this message. If you have felt the healing power of horses or help them in their divinely appointed mission, please reach out. We want to hear your story. As we say goodbye, always remember that the horse is always there to help you heal.